You know, I was thinking about you today, and I wondered. I know that you're retired now, and you did very well,
Yeah.
ending that career. What is it like for you now not to be an MMA fighter?
You know, it took a while. It's very hard. You have to replace that feeling because it's very euphoric. I mean, listen, there's 20,000 people. You knock somebody out, people go nuts. You know, it's very hard to find something else that gives you that
Right.
same feeling.
Yeah.
And training, I just miss the training so much. I had 4 neck surgeries, so and my kneecaps, I have no cartilage on my kneecaps. It sounds easy, but it's the worst problem you can have in the knee because they can't replace it.
Right.
Everything else you can do, not
Yeah.
the kneecap.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the ground now, and like rolling, going for submissions, like judo, jiu-jitsu, that, I love that. You know, that's something I miss the most because the connections, every time when you train, you find out new things. And I've been doing for 20 years, you go like, no, this is so crazy. Every time, every single time, you come up with something new. And
Yeah.
it's endless. The combination, that's why I always say to families, put your kids in there. Because once they get the bug, so to say, and they start realizing what they can do with the setups that you have to create, it's really good for the brain development.
I was going to ask about that. Being an MMA fighter, do you have to be mentally strong and aware?
You know, for me, always calmness worked the best.
Yeah.
I'm a really, like, nobody can speak up in my dressing room. You're gonna do this, you're out. You know, there's gonna be like, because I'm a hothead already. So if somebody hits me and I lose control, that's
Yeah.
the worst thing that can happen. So I'm always relax. So yeah, it's, you know, it needs great focus. And MMA, there's many ways that you can win, but it automatically means there's many ways that you can lose as well. You make one little mistake and you're caught in something. If you forget to hang an arm out there for a while, there's an arm bar, or there's a
Yeah.
triangle choke, or there's
Right.
a side choke. And I mean, the combinations are endless, you know, and the different setups to certain combinations. You know, if you don't know a certain setup, if you can create a setup that the best ground fighter on the planet doesn't know yet, you will catch him with it. But you will catch him once. That will never happen because
Yeah.
he's the best guy.
He's
But
the-
if he doesn't know, you might be lucky and you catch him with it. And that's the cool thing about the submission game. I mean,
Are you surprised that you had such success in your career doing what you
no,
do?
I knew I was always a great athlete, but you know, thankfully I always put myself in the number 2 spot because I always thought there's somebody who trains harder than me. And that was the way for me to motivate myself to train even harder than them. What I was surprised about is that I was a great striker. So I knocked the first 2 guys out in Japan, and the third guy took me down. He put me in a submission. It was called a toe hold. Now don't let that name fool you, because I saw somebody break a shin bone with a toe hold. It's like a twist on your ankle that they do. It's very painful. I knew that, but I didn't know what it was. And then I lost later on. I won a few more fights by knockout, but I realized I had to learn the ground game because then after my 3rd loss with the ground game, I just became very angry with myself and say, okay, it's either I learn this game or I'm going to quit. You know, I might
Right.
get lucky one time, knock somebody out, but I think if you become a champion, you should defend your title. Then you're a real champion.
That's right.
You know, so if I'm lucky and then I lose the next time by submission, that would be stupid. So, but then I started focusing on it, and somehow I fell in love with it, and I became obsessed with it. And my poor wife, I mean, I would wake her up in the middle of the night. I would dream a submission, make her up, put her in that submission. And I said, your arm is hurting, right? Your shoulder, right? Yeah. And I would write it down, and the next day I would try it out in training. And I got so obsessed, I never lost a fight again. So I lost 3 fights by submission. As soon as I started learning, 3 months later, I started fighting again. Well, in those 2.5 months, I think, I won my next 8 fights by submission. And then I never lost again. So my last 22 fights, I never lost. And it was just because I focused on the ground game. I knew nobody was going to stand with me. So let's do this 3 times a day, only that. And then I became a master at it.
I wonder, are there any, when you look back on your career, are there moments where you say, wow, that was pretty cool? You have like those moments like, I can't believe that happened.
You know, that was, and I remember I came back, there was one time, we always would go to the gym in Japan to just roll around before the fight, you know, so a little workout is good for the jet lag. And there were a whole bunch of Americans, which I always thought they were here, and I was here in my level.
Right.
And when I start rolling with them, I start tapping them. And actually pretty easy, and I go, whoa, this is crazy. And I remember when I came home, that's when I told my wife, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to be a world champion because I'm much better than I thought I was.
Amazing.
You know, and that was it. And that set the whole thing in motion. And
Have you ever tapped out?
yeah, I did on the toe hold. Yeah. Oh, and on a knee bar. And on a knee bar from a Ken Shamrock. The knee bar is a hyperextension of your leg. So the leg can only go this far. Then they bring the lower leg here.
Oh.
So, well, if you don't tap, you're going to break your leg.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that was also.
So when you're down on the floor, I often wonder this about people who end up on the floor and the person's holding them down there and keeping them down. What are you thinking while you're there? I feel embarrassed down here. I got to get out of here.
No, it's a game, you know. I just wait for one mistake. I throw a lot of baits out, you know. Like for instance, if somebody's on top of me and I want him to put his arm around my neck, I just lean back and I start breathing heavy.
Oh.
You know, and then most of the time, those people they see a submission, they go around your neck, which is the worst thing you can do if you're on top, because as soon as you put an arm around my neck, let's say your right arm goes around my neck. If I push you to that side, you have no base now. So if then I can lock your leg, the only thing I have to is push you to the side, and now I'm on top. So, you know, you can bait people like that. I never understood, and nobody was doing it. I did things with really good submission fighters that would sit on top of me, and I go, man, how do I get them off? I go, oh, I know, I'll do this. Because if I do this, I know they're going to go for an armbar. Because my hands are locked, but they will figure out later how to break my grip.
Right.
You know, but I know that they're going to do it. So I was just doing this, so I know they go for an armbar. And as soon as they go for it, I would return, and now I'm in a better position, you know. So it's just little setups.
But I don't think most people think that way when they're down on the floor.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how do I get out of here.
Well, this is the thing. For me, it was there's no wrestling in Holland. So there's maybe 3 wrestling schools in Holland. So wrestling, not like here in school, everybody knows wrestling. So I didn't know how to wrestle. So I knew I either got to be very good on the ground and on the feet. And this is funny actually, because in 2015, when you said it with the Hall of Fame induction, they had a stat in there. And they said that I attempted 53 submissions, yet I never took one person down. So that meant that person took me down, and we'll reverse him, and then we'll put him in a submission.
Yeah.
You see, and I thought that was a cool stat, because normally, you know, the submission guys go for the takedowns, and then, but I never did. I was just striking, they take me down, reverse him, and then go for a submission. So,
that's amazing.
You know,
so you finished a career on a 22-fight win streak. So you must have felt pretty good then finishing in that way.
Yeah.
At least you didn't finish as a loser. You finished as a winner.
Yeah, I think God gave me a bunch of injuries, and He did it on purpose to say, because I'm a knucklehead, you know, I think I can still fight now. You know?
Yeah, you look pretty strong now.
So I feel good, but you know, the fact of the matter is, those guys, they're going to come up, and they're upcoming. They started training when they was 12 years old. Now they're 22. They're all 10 years in, super young, and the stamina. You are going to lose eventually.
Right.
You know, but because of my injuries, I had to quit. And I see many other fighters from my era. You know, if you look at the records, great records, and then the last 11 losses, the last 7 losses, because they can't let it go. Because fighting is so addicting. It's such a great feeling to be there. And I know I would have done that, but thankfully, because of my injuries.
So you had all these injuries and you had to quit. Did your ego want to continue anyway? You know, like,
yeah,
it's not
for
that
sure.
bad.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know, I was lucky. I did some pro wrestling over in Japan. Like the pro wrestling here is really different. The pro wrestling in Japan, they call it strong style. And that means they use real submission moves. Like here in America, clotheslines and all these mafia kicks, that they will never work in a real fight. You know, and so I didn't know these things, but I know all the real moves. So for me, to just hold back and let him escape here and there. But the first 3 matches, I broke a disc in my back. The second one, I ruptured an eyeball. I had a blind spot here for like 3 months or 6 months. And my third one, I broke my eardrum. I came home, my wife says, why don't you go back to real fighting? You never had those injuries with real fighting. You have them with pro wrestling.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because in pro wrestling, you let yourself get hit. You know, because that looks great for the guy hit me with a flat hand on my ear. Yeah, your eardrum pops. Normally, I simply block it. But if it's in the script that I'm going to have to take the hit, I'll take the hit, you see. So
was it all worth it to have all those pains and injuries?
Yeah, no, it was worth it. You know, New Japan Pro Wrestling, you have to understand, I did it in the Tokyo Dome. We got 55,000 people. I mean, they play indoor baseball there.
Yeah.
You know, and to be there in front of 55,000 people, it's great. It's almost like real fighting. You see actually really good pro wrestlers from Japan. Sakuraba, for instance, he's the guy who put Japan on the map with mixed martial arts. He beat like 3 or 4 Gracies, who at the time were the best fighters. And that was a pro wrestler. But he was used to the strong style, so he knew all the real submission moves. So for him making the transition well, he performed in front of thousands of people on a weekly basis, so he was not nervous at all. Plus, he knew all the moves. He came in and he started beating the best guys on the planet.
Are the wrestlers in Japan, are they smarter than the rest of the world in wrestling?
Pro wrestling? Or well, you know, you get some really smart people there also. I think, but people see, when you see a Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, "Rah," with the beer and he's drinking and that. You meet Stone Cold, he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, they play a certain part. They play the heel. The heel is the
Right.
bad guy, right? Or you play the good guy. Now, both guys get people in the seats, of course. And if you're a good heel, look at Conor McGregor in mixed martial arts, right? Everybody knows this guy. If you know Trump, you know Conor McGregor. You know, it's like that big how he is.
Yeah.
So playing a bad guy, because if you interview Conor McGregor, you find out he's a really good guy, family man. He's a really nice guy. But once the camera turns on, he becomes another person.
So you opened up an MMA gym. How's that going? And do you personally train, or do you have hired people to train others?
No, I because it's called Bas Rutten's Elite MMA. It's in Westlake Village, and since the name is on the building, I didn't want to be one of those guys who, you know, there's a lot of people out there. They use a name, but that person is never there.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to happen. So I teach 2 days a week. Actually, straight from this interview, I will drive home 6 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I teach.